we were tasked by conference to find some room, to make some room on eschatological situations, and there are some brothers and sisters that have different perspectives and beliefs than the Red Book offers up. And so conference assigned us with a task. I want to see if I can get there. Yeah, okay, all right. So in 2024, the BFC appointed a study committee, and so here we are today, and we're happy to present what we have found. In 2025, we made a report to conference. If you have not read that report, the link to that is on the front of your notes here. As well, we made an oral presentation, and that video, the link to that is on the front page of your handout as well. And then BFC Conference took our report and took our oral presentation, and they made the following resolution. Resolved, at the bottom of your handout here, resolved that conference encourages the committee to bring to the 2026 BFC Conference proposed changes to the Articles of Faith consistent with the sentiments of the committee's 2025 report. So that's the work that we're finally beginning today. We're going to release to you a handout of the proposed changes that we're offering. We'll give you time to reflect on that. We would love your feedback, and really the purpose of today's meeting is to begin a back and forth dialogue, not only on the subject matter, but on our particular amendments. And so we'll hand out towards the end of the day our proposed changes. On the front page of that are email addresses of the committee members. We would love for you to email the whole committee or an individual of the committee on your initial feedback of those proposed changes, as well, hey, I have a deep reservation against a particular phrase that you guys are using. We would love to know that ahead of conference, because while we believe we're making room for others and opening a door for a wider audience, what we would hate to do is open the door for some and then close the door for some of you that are already part of the Bible Fellowship Church. In fact, we believe that none of you will be disappointed with or disagree with anything in our proposed legislation. We really do believe we're opening the door for others while not closing the door on any existing BFC members or pastors. So the intent of our work today and our work for these multiple years, the intent of the committee is to help conference amend the Articles of Faith so that the denomination would allow for both premillennial and amillennial viewpoints to be held and to be taught in the Bible Fellowship Church. The committee does not think that the postmillennial viewpoints should be held or taught within the BFC, and the committee's proposed changes would, we believe, prevent postmillennialism from being held or taught in the Bible Fellowship Church. So that's really where we're headed as a committee, and we would love to get your feedback on that. The purpose of today's meeting, then, is that we hope to introduce our reasoning as well as initial drafts of changes to the Articles of Faith. We hope that we today will help all of you. So if you're a pastor in the house, let me get a hand. Are you a pastor? Bunch of pastors? All right, hands down. Any elders in the house? Elders. All right, and lay people at large. Any lay people? All right. We're all glad that all of you are here, and there's all sorts of individuals in this room. Really, ultimately, in April, it's pastors and the delegates that will vote on our proposed changes. And so we will be taking your feedback both today and throughout the next several months, and we will be tweaking what we're handing out. We're going to listen, and we're going to adjust what we propose to conference based on what we hear from you all today. But ultimately, in April, we'll be issuing a first reading proposal, and pastors and delegates will need to vote on that. Hopefully today will equip you to be able to vote. Vote mindfully, vote alertly, and vote yes or vote no, but at least you've done so informed. Also, our intention is, even if you're an elder that's not a delegate to conference, all of our elders of all of our churches will be voting after first reading to approve these articles of faith or disapprove them. And I'll talk about the amendment process later in my presentation. But all of the elders are going to have to vote on this. So really, if you're an elder that's not a delegate to conference, we still want you to be informed because you're going to have to vote on these changes, and we want you to be equipped for that vote. Again, we hope to inform you so that you know whether to vote yes or vote no. That's up to your conscience, but we want to give you the information necessary so that you can vote informedly. Also, lay people will be affected by these changes, particularly if we do make room and we do open the door. There will be a potential of you will be hearing some of these doctrines in the pulpit, in your teachings, in your classes. So we want you to understand the changes and why we as a committee believe that that's an acceptable thing to do. But I saw a lot of hands from a variety of perspectives, and not every one of us has a master's or doctorate degree focused on eschatology. So I thought what I needed to do is set the stage for our whole day-long conversation with giving you some terms, all right? And so if you hear a term from one of our presenters or another, what does that term mean? And so I've given you sort of the Tim Schmoyer dumbed-down explanation. I'm a basic guy with basic thoughts, and I want to give you some basic introductions to some of these terms. So I just have one slide that just says terms. All right, great. Well, now we're here. Eschatology is sort of the big umbrella that we're thinking about. And the word just means the study of end times. The Greek word eschaton just means a final event or the end. And so in Christian theology, eschatology is narrowly focused on what events does God prophesy that will occur. And so, no matter what your viewpoints are, that falls under the umbrella of eschatology. The millennium is the particular event that we're focused on today. So you're not going to hear a lot about the rapture or about the tribulation or about the new heavens and new earth. All of those things are going to happen in what order you put them. We're not here to discuss what order those things all are in, because really the discussion we're having is just one event, one season called the millennium. The Bible speaks of Christ establishing a kingdom of justice and peace. The effects of the curse will be restrained. The when, the where, the how of this kingdom is a matter of debate, and then Christians disagree about it. And the Bible Fellowship Church is now having a conversation about, can we allow multiple different viewpoints on the how, the where, the when of this kingdom? Can we allow multiple viewpoints in the Bible Fellowship Church? I don't want to steal a whole lot of thunder from Dan Hofstetter, who will be presenting later this afternoon. He's going to talk about theological triage. How do we determine if a doctrine is so important it must be in our statements, or a doctrine is biblically taught but we don't need it in our red book? Okay. And so what we believe as a study committee is that this red book is narrowly defined into one understanding of the millennium, and that perhaps there are very good, biblically sound reasons why people that disagree with the red book still have a biblical understanding and can find room to be included in the Bible Fellowship Church. And so our changes that we're proposing, if you agree with the red book today, the changes that we're offering, you will agree with those statements. We believe everything in the new statements you will agree with. We believe that. And I challenge you email me. I'll be on the front cover of that sheet. Tim Schmoyer, not Tim Bertolette, Tim Schmoyer. Email me if you find something in that handout we have that you disagree with. Because I believe firmly, if you believe the Red Book, you will believe our proposed statements. Because what ultimately we're doing is we're just saying less than we used to say. Okay? So, how many of you believe Jesus is going to rapture the church before the tribulation? I promise this wasn't about the tribulation or the rapture. Before the tribulation. All right, hands down. How many of you believe Jesus will return and rapture the church at the end of the tribulation? Oh, exactly, yes. You all belong in the Bible Fellowship Church, and the Red Book doesn't say anything about the timing of the rapture in comparison to the tribulation. We already have some wiggle room and freedom on that eschatological question. On the question of the millennium, we're asking that there be a bit of wiggle room so that multiple perspectives can be believed within one church. As we already have it on the timing of the rapture, so the timing and the nature of the millennium. With all that said, that's a broad definition of millennium. It is Jesus' kingdom of justice and peace. The when, the where, the how, we all have different viewpoints. So let me give you some of those very popular viewpoints. Premillennialism, basically, is the belief that the kingdom will begin when Christ returns to earth. The pre in premillennialism is that Christ returns before the millennium begins. So all of it is really a question of when does Christ return in relation to when the millennium begins. Premillennialism says Jesus returns before the millennium begins. Within premillennialism, there are two large camps, historic premillennialism and dispensational premillennialism. I'll give you some quick definitions of those. In historic premillennialism, Christ returns to set up his kingdom on earth for 1,000 years. Many in this group believe that he does so immediately after the tribulation, a post-tribulation rapture, but not all historic premillennialists are post-trib. In dispensational premillennialism, there is a more thorough ordering of the events before, during, and after the millennium, and it particularly emphasizes God's future plans for national Israel. In dispensationalism, Christ raptures the church before the tribulation, since the tribulation is the day of Jacob's trouble, as Jeremiah 30 puts it, the day of Jacob's trouble. And so in dispensationalism, there's this division between the church and Israel, and so God's plans for the church are over, and God's plans for Israel resume, and that's very much a dispensational perspective. The historic premillennial perspective doesn't necessitate anything to do with national Israel. And so I would just say that the BFC has welcomed both historic and dispensational premillennialists since 1896. So what are we saying by that? We have two different perspectives already within the Bible Fellowship Church. Many of us are historic premillennial, others of us are dispensational premillennial, and we're all premillennial, but there are some clear delineations between multiple of us. And so if there already are multiple perspectives on the millennium, why not other perspectives on the millennium? That's essentially what the study committee is asking you to realize. So let's give you some other camps, other groups that technically right now in the Red Book, the Bible Fellowship would not allow these groups in the BFC. Amillennialism. In that viewpoint, there is no literal 1,000-year physical reign of Christ from the earth. Instead, Christ is reigning over both heaven and earth from his heavenly throne. He's already doing that. And so the in amillennialism means no. They believe that there's a millennium, they just don't believe there's a literal 1,000-year millennium, and also that there's no literal bodily reign of Christ on earth. There's a reign of Christ, but he's not on earth reigning. He's reigning over the earth from heaven. Forgive me if you're amillennial and you disagree with my definition. I think, largely speaking, I got it pretty well right to represent you. Postmillennialism is a belief that the kingdom will be established by the church in all of its worldwide success. Christ returns after the 1,000-year reign of his church, as his church governs the earth, governs mankind. And so post is involved with Christ's return, is post-millennium. The pre and the post speak of Christ's return related to the kingdom. Does Christ's return happen before the kingdom, after the kingdom? And then the awe of amillennialism speaks of the lack of a earthly reign for 1,000 years. There is another group that is called preterism, and essentially they would say that all end times prophecies, both Old and New Testament, were speaking about the fall of Jerusalem by Rome in 70 AD. And from their vantage point, from our 21st century vantage point, they're uninterested because those events already happened 2,000 years ago, and so we're not waiting for future prophetic events to occur. I will also just add, because you might hear this phrase throughout the day of the Lord. And the Bible uses that phrase to speak about many unrelated things. God used that phrase in the Old Testament often to speak of Babylon destroying the temple in the 6th century BC. The phrase was also used to speak of Christ's return for his church. And so the phrase is used for different historical events, some that have already occurred and some that have not yet occurred. It was narrowly used to speak of a 24-hour day, but it's also used to speak of a season or a period of time. Tim Schmoyer wrote a paper one time, I remember, essentially arguing that the day of the Lord began at Pentecost and is continuing onward for all time, that when he poured out his Spirit on all flesh, as Joel talks about that was the day of the Lord. I believe that was in one voice 20 years ago. Remember something like that. Maybe you can correct me. Am I wrong about that? I'm pretty sure. The last days, yeah. All right. And so we can rightly use that phrase to speak about happy future events or devastating events. Give you some key Bible passages. One just very quickly, because it's the obvious place to go. I'm having trouble with the clicker, so I'm just going to stick to my paper. Key text, Revelation 20, obviously is the go-to passage. I can't tell you how many times I heard in our study committee deliberations that there's really only one text about the millennium. And if what you mean by that is 1,000 years, that phrase, 1,000 years, there is only one passage in the Bible that speaks of that, and it's Revelation chapter 20. Both Tim Schmoyer and Aaron Sussick will have interaction on Revelation 20 later in today's presentation. All right, you'll notice if I'm just introducing you to Revelation 20 as a key text. The chapter before it, chapter 19, is Christ's return to earth. And chapter 21 and 22 are the New Jerusalem coming down, new heavens and new earth. Chapter 20 is sandwiched in between that, which doesn't necessarily mean that John is painting a chronological step-by-step, but it is something worth noticing at the very least. I'll give you a couple other key passages that speak of what is happening during the millennium. Zechariah chapter 14 speaks both of Jesus' return to earth as well as a battle, much like Revelation 19 speaks about it. But also in the middle of the chapter and moving forward to the end of the book, he is setting up a just and peaceful worldwide kingdom. And the worldwide nature of that kingdom after his return is spoken of in Zechariah chapter 14. If we want to understand the millennium, that's going to be a key text to understand. In Isaiah, two major sections, and maybe you could see some sprawl on both sides of these two chapters. But Isaiah chapter 11 prophesies a sprig from Jesse, a branch from Jesse, will reign over the earth with a rod from his mouth. If you know anything about Revelation, we're hearing lots of connections between Isaiah 11 and the book of Revelation. The end result of that ruling will be peacefulness. A peaceful place insofar as even a lion will lie down with a lamb. All right, so that's Isaiah 11. Chapter 65 re-echoes that peaceful time, and we see a lot of the curse's effects, that is Adam and Eve's curse, are diminished. It says there that one dying at 100 years old will be thought of as young in his death. A troubling element of Isaiah 65 for all groups trying to understand the millennium, whether you're pre, post, amillennial, is verse 17, which calls that season new heavens and new earth. Okay? It's troubling for the premillennialist because new heavens and new earth don't happen in Revelation until after the millennium is over. It's troubling for the amillennialist because he just got done saying people will die. 100-year-old people will die and they'll be thought of as young. And so how is it new heavens and new earth and people are still dying? All right, so it's troubling for both groups. I felt it was necessary to throw in as we try to begin to open our minds to what the millennium, frankly, is all about. Dispensationalists particularly will emphasize in Matthew's gospel, the kingdom of God is like, right? And so you have all these parables, the kingdom of heaven is like this, the kingdom of heaven is like that. Dispensationalists in particular, beginning with the Sermon on the Mount, but going forward, will often pick out that they interpret those statements as Jesus is laying down what it will be like for people during the millennium. All the rest of us are looking at the dispensationalists saying, we should be doing those things now. If I'm a peacemaker now, that's a Christian thing. If I'm a meek person now, that's what Christ is asking me to do. And so, but Matthew 5, notice that the blessings do speak of a future blessing. Blessed are you when you do this now. Why? Because you will, phrases like you'll inherit the earth. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And so there's a future benefit for a current life attitude. I think to say that they're only realized during the millennium is overstated. It's not in the text itself. But it's worth meditating on how do these things inform our view of the millennium. I told the group that I would be done soon, so that I would not take my full hour, and I think you'll all be glad for that. But what I do want to do is for those of you that don't know how we make our changes in the Bible Fellowship Church, I did want to walk through the amendment process. So how do we change things that are in the red book? How do we change those things? And all of this largely happens at BFC conference. So I just want to, well, you can read it, but it's probably easier to read on your paper. We aren't even on the paper yet. I'm giving you lots of, I wanted to put a little bubble above it that says you are here, right? Do you ever go into a mall? I don't even think people go to malls anymore, especially guys. We don't go to malls. But I remember going to a mall one time, and the first thing you do when you walk in the door is there's a map of the mall, and it's got a little bubble, and what does it say? You are here. That's so valuable. As we're wandering through things that you might not really understand, it's really good to have that marker and know where we are. So we're not even in the 700s yet. The study committee is introducing to you proposals that we hope to bring to annual conference. once we've brought those changes to annual conference, we're going to ask guys to get out their phone and text Y or text N. And Tim, is it going to be you? And Tim's going to look at the computer screen, Tim Nestler here, going to look at the computer screen and see, not name by name, but just the raw count, how many yeses, how many nos. Once we get a vote, then we've entered the 700s. 701-1 is we take a vote on the proposed legislation. If it gets 2/3 of those members present, then it can move forward. 2/3 vote. All right, so right now in secular, wicked society, we don't have a functioning Congress, but one part of Congress, the House, looks for 50% of the vote, right? 50 plus 1. But then you've got the Senate, and right now, what are the rules? To pass a bill in the Senate, what do you need? You need 60% of the Senate to vote. What do you call that? Is that a filibuster-proof majority? Wow, that's a tongueful, a mouthful. Filibuster-proof majority. What did the president just say? He truthed out there. What does he want the Senate to do? He wants to eliminate. I'm so glad you don't know. What godly people we have here. I love it. He just truthed out that we should eliminate the filibuster so that the Republicans in the Senate can reopen the government. Everyone wants the government reopened. It's how we reopen it. That's what everyone's fighting about. I think conservatives don't want the government open. Like, the less they do, the better. Isn't that the conservative position? Okay. But basically paying their workers, I mean, that's a godly thing. Didn't James say that? Pay your workers? Yeah. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. One needs 50%, one needs 60%. What does the BFC need? 66.66666%. What a godly number that is, if you know the book of Revelation. All right. Isn't it 616 is the mark of the beast? 616. Okay. So we're okay. We're okay with 66666. Once we get that 2/3 majority, then we go back to our local congregation, and your elder board will have a vote around the table. They will look at the document, they'll look at what conference approved, and they will vote. Do we as a local elder board want this change to our red book? And if your local elder board votes by 50% plus 1 vote, that gets sent to Ron Cole. Ron Cole's here in the house today, and he's going to get an email that says that your church approved it. All right, and this other church approved it, but that other church didn't approve it. And so he's looking at all the number of our churches. Did 3/4, is it 3/4 of them? 3/4 of them. Oh, it's only 2/3. Good. It's only 2/3. In paragraph 4, if 2/3 of the church elder boards approve it by a simple majority, 50% plus 1, then we can move forward to have a second vote. So we've gone through a first vote of conference. Then the elder boards of all the churches voted, and you by simple majority said yes, but you by simple majority said no. Ron pools all those numbers. He's looking for 2/3 of the churches. And churches must vote. And now we have a whip that's whipping them to vote. Get out the vote. Okay. Yeah, veto. You better vote or you'll be swimming with the fishes. All right. And give them some concrete shoes. All right, so your church elders vote. Once Ron knows that 2/3 of the churches voted yes, not that 2/3 voted, but that 2/3 voted yes, then conference can have a second vote. And so we have a whole second round of debate at annual conference, whether we're going to approve it or disapprove it. If conference votes a second time by 2/3 yes, then it becomes part of the red book. And then Rachel has to scramble and change the red book and get it to press so that we can hand out a new book with all those changes. There's changes to like 6 articles because you use this to teach your membership classes, right? So we want new printed books to give to all of our members so they are being taught the new change, not the old statement. And then you have to hem and haw and say, well, we just changed it, and we'll give you a piece of paper, here's what the change was, and yeah. I'd rather just hand the new member a new book, and so there's all these logistics. Okay? That's the amendment process. It reads pretty naturally. You take step 1, then step 2, et cetera, et cetera. I will give you a minute to take a deep breath. We've heard a lot. We've thought a lot of different terms, a lot of different Bible passages. We've looked through the amendment process. Initially, are there any questions? There is a microphone up here if you want to walk up and answer your question. You can shout it out. I'll restate it for the recording, and then I'll try to answer it. Hopefully, this is all just introductory, and you get what we're headed towards. Any reactions so far?